I held my coffee too tight. Relax, I whispered to myself outside the glass building. I need this job. My phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. Payment reminder. I swallowed hard. I will fix everything, Mama. I promise. I walked inside my new workplace, trying not to stare at the marble floors or the giant company logo shining above the lobby desk. My heels felt too loud. My suit felt too cheap. New secretary? The receptionist asked. Yes. Today is my first day. Third floor. HR is waiting. My hands were already shaking. When I reached my desk, I noticed my computer screen flickering. Great, I muttered. First day and already broken. I rushed to the pantry for coffee before anyone important arrived. I needed something warm to calm my nerves. On my way back, I turned the corner too fast and crashed into someone. The cup slipped. Hot coffee splashed across a plain gray shirt. Oh my God. I gasped. I am so sorry. The man stepped back, looking down at the stain. A toolbox dropped softly to the floor. I didn't see you, I said quickly. Please don't report me. It's my first day. He looked up at me. Dark eyes. Come. Observing. Are you burned? He asked. I blinked. What? The coffee. Did it burn you? No. I don't think so. That's good. I grabbed tissues from my pocket and started dabbing his shirt nervously. I can pay for the dry cleaning. I don't have much, but I will figure it out. Please don't tell my supervisor. He watched me for a moment. You think I have that much power? He asked softly. You work here, I said, glancing at the toolbox. IT, right? You can complain. He smiled slightly. Yes, IT. My face burned with embarrassment. I'm really sorry. I am new. I can't afford to lose this job. Why? He asked gently. The question surprised me. Because I need it, I said. My mother is in the hospital. I am the only one paying the bills. His expression changed. Softer. Serious. I see. I stepped back, realizing I was still too close. I talk too much when I am nervous, I said quickly. I should just stop. Don't, he replied. I frowned. Don't what? Don't stop talking. I laughed awkwardly. You must think I am a mess. I think you are honest. The way he said it made my chest tighten. I handed him more tissues. Your shirt is completely ruined. It's just a shirt. It doesn't look cheap. Neither do you. I froze. Excuse me? He corrected calmly, you look capable. Not cheap. I exhaled slowly. Thank you. That means more than you think. He bent down and picked up his toolbox. So, what's wrong with your computer? He asked. It keeps flickering. I thought it was already judging me. He chuckled softly. Show me. We walked to my desk together. My coworkers glanced at us but quickly looked away. He placed the toolbox down and leaned toward the monitor. Loose cable, he said after a moment. Nothing dramatic. Like my life, I replied. He looked at me again. Your life sounds dramatic. It is, I said quietly. But I don't have time to complain about it. Why not? Because complaining doesn't pay hospital bills. Silence fell between us. He tightened something behind the monitor. There, he said. Fixed. That fast. Yes. You're good at your job. I try. I studied his hands. Strong. Steady. Not rushed. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course. Do you like working here? He paused before answering. Sometimes. That doesn't sound convincing. It depends on the people. Oh, I said, smiling. And what kind of people make it better? Honest ones. My heart skipped for a strange reason. I just hope I survive here, I admitted. Big companies scare me. Why? I feel small. You're not. You don't even know me. I know enough. I stared at him. You're different from what I expected. What did you expect? Someone impatient. Someone annoyed. Because of the coffee? Because of life. He leaned back slightly. Life doesn't improve if we punish accidents. I swallowed. Do you always talk like that? Only when someone spills coffee on me. I laughed again, softer this time. My phone buzzed once more. I glanced at it. Hospital. My smile faded. Bad news? He asked quietly. Just reminders, I said. Money reminders. He studied me carefully. You're strong, he said. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't loud. I didn't know why, but my eyes started to sting. Don't cry, I said to myself under my breath. I'm not crying, I added quickly. I didn't say you were. I wiped the corner of my eye anyway. This job means everything to me, I confessed. I can't mess it up. You won't. How do you know? Because you care. I looked at him as if he had just handed me something fragile. You barely know me, I whispered. Sometimes that's enough. I straightened my shoulders. Thank you, He hesitated. Daniel, he said. I know, he interrupted gently. He glanced at my nameplate. I can read. I smiled shyly. Nice to meet you, Daniel from IT. He picked up his toolbox again. Try not to spill anything else today. I will try, I promised. He took a few steps away then stopped. One more thing. Yes. Don't feel small here. I tilted my head. Easy for you to say. Not really. Before I could ask what that meant, someone called my name sharply. Why is IT still here? A woman demanded from across the room. I fixed her computer, Daniel answered calmly. Next time submit a request first, she said coldly. I felt heat rush to my face. I'm sorry, I said quickly. It was my fault. Daniel looked at me briefly. It's fine, he said. He walked away without another word. The woman approached my desk. You're new, she said. Yes. Be careful who you get comfortable with. I don't understand. You will. She walked off. I sat frozen. Comfortable? All I did was spill coffee. I looked toward the elevator just as the doors began to close. Daniel stood inside. For a second our eyes met. Not embarrassed. Not amused. Something deeper. The doors shut. I didn't know why my heart was beating so loudly. I didn't know why the warning felt heavier than it should. I only knew one thing. The man with the toolbox was not ordinary. And somehow my life had just shifted. Even if I didn't know how yet. Board meeting at 10. All department staff attend. I stared at the email twice. All staff. I whispered. Yes, the woman beside me said. First quarterly review with the CEO. My stomach tightened. The CEO attends these personally? Of course. You've never seen him? I shook my head. I heard he's cold, she added. Brilliant. But cold. Cold. I thought of calm dark eyes and a gray shirt stained with coffee. I quickly pushed the thought away. The conference room felt too big for me. Long glass table. City view. Leather chairs that cost more than my monthly salary. I sat near the end. Don't speak unless asked, the woman beside me whispered. Just take notes. I understand. The door opened. Everyone stood at once. Chairs scraped against the floor. My heart jumped at the sudden movement. Then I saw him. Sharp black suit. Perfectly pressed. No toolbox. No gray shirt. No stain. Just power. My breath disappeared. He walked in slowly, calm as always. But this time the room felt like it belonged to him. It's him, I whispered before I could stop myself. The woman beside me frowned. Of course it's him. My fingers trembled. He reached the head of the table. Good morning, he said. The same voice. Steady. Controlled. The voice that told me I was strong. Good morning, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel. Gio. My chest tightened painfully. I felt heat crawl up my neck. He glanced down the table. For 1 second his eyes found mine. Recognition. Then something else. Stillness. Sit, he instructed. Everyone obeyed. I sat slowly trying to breathe. I remembered every word I had said. You must think I am a mess. Do you like working here? Life doesn't improve if we punish accidents. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. He began the presentation. Quarterly profits are stable, he said. But stability is not growth. His tone was different. Stronger. Sharper. Not the gentle man fixing cables. He asked questions. Managers answered carefully. No one interrupted him. No one joked. No one spilled coffee. I kept my head down, writing notes. My hands shook so badly that my pen scratched across the paper. At one point he asked, Any suggestions from the administrative team? Silence. Then his gaze moved directly to me. New secretary, he said. What is your name? My throat closed. I forced myself to speak. I said my name softly. Do you have any observations so far? I blinked. I think communication between departments could be clearer, I said carefully. The room went quiet. I felt eyes stabbing into me. He leaned back slightly. Explain. My heart pounded in my ears. Sometimes small issues grow because no one feels comfortable speaking early, I said. Clear weekly updates might reduce that. Silence again. Then he nodded once. Noted. The meeting moved on. But I could feel whispers forming already. When it ended, everyone stood again. He left first. I stayed frozen in my seat. Bold? Someone muttered behind me. Or stupid, another voice replied. I packed my notebook slowly. The woman beside me leaned closer. You knew? She asked quietly. Knew what? That he was the CEO. My face burned. No. She stared at me. Be careful, she whispered. People don't like surprises here. I stepped into the hallway. My chest felt tight. I needed air. Wait. The voice stopped me. I turned. He stood alone near the glass wall. No board members. No managers. Just him. I'm sorry, I blurted immediately. I didn't know. If I was disrespectful yesterday. You weren't. I called you Daniel from IT. I remember. I talked about my life. I complained. You were honest. I was unprofessional. He stepped closer. You treated me like a human, he said quietly. Not a title. I swallowed. I didn't mean to embarrass you. You didn't. I feel stupid. Why? Because everyone stood when you entered. And I spilled coffee on you. A faint smile touched his lips. That was refreshing. I stared at him. Refreshing? No one talks to me the way you did. That's because I thought you fixed cables. I do, he replied calmly. Sometimes. I frowned. You walk around like that on purpose? I like seeing how people act when they don't think power is watching. My stomach dropped. So, you were testing everyone? Not you. But you didn't correct me. You looked terrified already. I let out a shaky breath. I can't afford to lose this job. You won't. You can't promise that. I can. The certainty in his voice scared me more than anger would have. Why? I asked. Because I don't fire honest people. Before I could respond, footsteps approached. Two managers walked past slowly, staring at us. He noticed. His expression changed. Colder. Professional. We'll continue this later, he said formally. Yes, sir, I replied quickly. Sir. The word felt strange between us. He paused. Don't call me that when we're alone. My heart skipped. He walked away. I stood there, confused and exposed. By lunch, the whispers were louder. She spoke during the meeting. She met him yesterday. She planned it. I clenched my jaw. I heard my name again. She spilled coffee on him on purpose. Classic move. My chest tightened. I turned toward the voices. I did not, I said firmly. The woman raised an eyebrow. Relax. It's just interesting timing. It was an accident. Sure. I walked away before my voice broke. Inside the restroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. Pull yourself together, I whispered. My phone buzzed again. Hospital. Payment due. I closed my eyes. I can't lose this, I told my reflection. When I returned to my desk, an envelope waited there. No name written outside. I opened it carefully. Inside was a printed contract. Promotion to executive assistant. Effective immediately. My breath caught. This was too fast. Too visible. Too dangerous. A small handwritten note rested on top. I value courage. No signature. I didn't need one. Across the room I felt eyes watching. Not warm. Not kind. Sure. Calculating. The company was not smiling anymore. And now everyone knew. I was standing too close to the CEO. You're early. I looked up from my desk. She stood in front of me. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. Perfect control. I like to be prepared, I replied softly. I noticed, she said. Promotion on your second week. Impressive. Her smile did not reach her eyes. I didn't ask for it. No one ever does. I held her gaze. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Of course you are. She placed a file on my desk. Executive schedules are not simple. One mistake can cost millions. I understand. Do you? Her voice lowered. Girls like you often misunderstand how things work here. My fingers tightened around my pen. What do you mean? I mean ambition is expensive. And some people pay for it differently. Heat rushed to my face. I didn't pay for anything. She tilted her head slightly. That's what makes it interesting. Silence hung between us. I earned my job, I said quietly. Did you? I swallowed. Yes. She leaned closer. I've been here 8 years, she whispered. 8. And I've seen many accidents turn into advantages. I didn't spill coffee on purpose. I didn't say you did. Her smile widened. But perception matters more than truth. She straightened up. Meeting in 10 minutes. Don't embarrass me. You're not responsible for me. She paused. I am now. She walked away. I exhaled slowly. The hallway felt colder. During the meeting, I sat near the front, taking notes quickly. He walked in. Everyone stood. I did too. He glanced at me briefly. No smile. Professional. Let's begin, he said. He reviewed reports. Then he asked, any concerns about supplier delays? Silence. Then his eyes shifted toward me again. What do you think? He asked. The room froze. My throat tightened. I felt her stare burning into my side. I think, I began carefully, we should renegotiate penalties before the next quarter. Murmurs filled the room. He nodded. Explain. If we wait, we lose leverage, I continued. Right now they still need our renewal. Silence again. Then he said, prepare a draft proposal. My heartbeat thundered. Yes. The meeting ended. As soon as we stepped into the hallway, whispers started. She talks a lot for someone new. He keeps asking her. Convenient. I kept walking. Wait, she called. I stopped. You enjoy attention, she said softly. I answered a question. You volunteered confidence. He asked me. And you think that's normal? I felt something crack inside me. I don't control who he asks. No, she replied calmly. But you seem to benefit from it. Her words stung deeper than they should. I work hard. Hard work doesn't explain everything. What are you implying? I'm implying that proximity creates opportunity. My chest tightened. I didn't choose proximity. She leaned closer again. You could step back. Why would I? If you're innocent, prove it. How? Stop trying so hard. I stared at her. Trying hard is my job. Not when it threatens mine. There it was. Clear. Sure. Honest. I lowered my voice. I don't want your position. Everyone says that. I mean it. She studied my face. For your sake, she said quietly, I hope you do. She walked away again. My hands shook. At lunch I sat alone. 2 assistants sat nearby. Did you see her in the meeting? One whispered. So bold. So strategic. Or so calculated. I stood up suddenly. They looked at me. Yes? One asked sweetly. If you have something to say it clearly. They exchanged a glance. We were complimenting you. It didn't sound like that. You're sensitive. I clenched my jaw. Maybe. I left before my voice broke. Inside the restroom, I locked myself in a stall. My phone buzzed again. Hospital update. Treatment extended. More money. I covered my mouth to stop the sound that tried to escape me. I can't lose this, I whispered. Tears slipped down quietly. I wiped them fast. I couldn't look weak. Not here. A memory flashed in my mind. You're strong. His voice. Soft. Certain. But strength felt heavy today. A knock echoed outside. Are you crying? Her voice. I froze. No, I answered quickly. Good, she replied. Because weakness travels faster than rumors. Footsteps faded. I stared at the small photo in my wallet. Me and my mother. Her smile thin but brave. I won't fail you, I whispered. I washed my face. Fixed my makeup. Straightened my shoulders. When I stepped out, he stood at the end of the hallway. Alone. Waiting. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Yes. You don't look fine. I'm fine. He stepped closer. Did someone say something? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. That made everything worse. Please, I said softly. Don't make this harder. Harder. The more you speak to me in front of everyone, the worse it gets. He frowned. I won't ignore good ideas. It's not about ideas. Then what? It's about perception. He went silent. She spoke to you, he guessed. I didn't answer. He exhaled slowly. You don't have to face this alone. I do. Why? Because if you defend me, they'll say I asked you to. His jaw tightened. So you want distance? I hesitated. I want survival. Silence stretched between us. Finally he said, I won't treat you differently. That's the problem. He looked at me as if he understood too much. I respect you, he said quietly. I know. Then don't doubt yourself. I don't doubt my work. Then what do you doubt? I held his gaze. My place here. He stepped back slightly. You belong here. That's easy to say when the building belongs to you. His expression changed. Something wounded. I earned my place too, he said. I believe that. Then believe it for yourself. I looked away. Footsteps echoed again in the hallway. Eyes watching. Always watching. I should get back to work, I said. He nodded once. As I walked away, I heard laughter behind me. My name mixed inside it. Sure. Cutting. I kept walking. Each step heavier than the last. At my desk, I opened the draft proposal. My hands were steady now. If they wanted to test me, I would not break. If they wanted me small, I would grow quietly. I wiped the last trace of tears from my face. I won't run, I whispered to myself, because if I walked away now, they would win. Private investor dinner tonight, she said, placing a black folder on my desk. You'll attend. Me? I asked. You take notes now. Try not to spill anything. Her smile was sharp. I won't. Wear something appropriate. I always do. She looked me up and down. We'll see. That evening, the restaurant lights were low and golden. Crystal glasses. Soft music. Expensive silence. I sat 2 seats away from him. Not too close. Not safe enough. Relax, he murmured quietly before the investors arrived. I am relaxed. You're holding your pen like a weapon. I might need it. His lips almost curved. Then the investors walked in. They shook his hand firmly. They glanced at me briefly. Polite. Curious. Dinner began smoothly. We're impressed with the recent strategic proposal, one investor said. He nodded. The credit goes to the team. His eyes flickered toward me. My stomach tightened. She contributed, he added calmly. The investor smiled slowly. The new assistant. Yes. Fast rise, another investor said. I felt heat climb my neck. I work hard, I replied politely. Hard work is important, he said. So is influence. Silence. I wrote down every word, pretending not to feel the weight behind it. Halfway through the evening, she leaned toward one of the investors. Her voice was soft. I wasn't meant to hear it. But of course, talent sometimes comes with chemistry. The investor chuckled. I see. My pen froze. I kept my head down. Later, when I stood to refill my water, I heard it clearly. She spilled coffee on him the first day. Accidents can be useful. A low laugh. My chest burned. When I returned to the table, the air felt different. Eyes lingered longer. Smiles felt thinner. One investor leaned closer. You must be very persuasive. I focus on data, I answered firmly. Of course you do. The words felt dirty. I wanted to leave. But I stayed. Because leaving would look worse. The dinner ended with polite applause. Investors left slowly. She touched his arm lightly. You handled that well, she said sweetly. I always do, he replied. Her eyes slid toward me. Some distractions are harder to manage. I stared at her. I'm not a distraction. She smiled gently. No. He looked between us. What is this about? He asked. Nothing, she said smoothly. Just concern for the company's image. There is no issue with the company's image, he replied firmly. She held his gaze. Investors talk. Let them. Her smile faded. I stepped back quietly. I didn't belong in that conversation. As I walked toward the restroom, I heard footsteps behind me. 2 investors. I told you, one whispered. Young. Convenient. He's smarter than that. No one is immune. My throat closed. I locked myself in a stall. I stared at my reflection in the mirror after. I looked the same. But I felt stained. I walked out to the hallway. Voices echoed from a private room. He was inside. Angry. I will not demote competence because of rumors. A different voice replied, older, firm. You're too close. I am not. Investors believe you are. Silence. She's capable, he said. That's not the problem. Then what is? Perception. You're risking stability. I won't sacrifice talent to satisfy gossip. You already are. My heart pounded. She's a distraction, another voice added. Remove her from your immediate office. A long silence followed. I waited for him to defend me again. To say no. Instead, I heard a slow exhale. I'll adjust roles temporarily. The words hit harder than shouting. Good, the older voice said. Professional distance. My knees weakened. Adjust roles. Temporarily. I walked away before I heard more. The next morning, an email waited in my inbox. Effective immediately, reassigned to administrative support. Administrative support. Back where I started. For professionalism and clarity. My vision blurred. I walked to his office. The door was slightly open. "May I come in?" I asked. He looked up. His eyes held something heavy. "You saw the email?" "Yes." "It's temporary." "It doesn't say that." He stood. "I had to calm the board. By moving me." "It's strategic." "It feels like punishment." "It's protection." "Protection from what?" "From them." I laughed bitterly. "They already decided who I am." "I know." "Do you?" He stepped closer. "I won't let them ruin your future." "You just did." Silence filled the room. "I'm trying to manage this carefully," he said. "I didn't ask you to manage me." "You think I wanted this?" "I think you chose them." His jaw tightened. "I chose stability. And I'm unstable?" "That's not what I meant." "It's what it feels like." He ran a hand through his hair. "I can fix this." "When?" "Soon." "Soon doesn't pay hospital bills." He froze. "I didn't forget about that. But you forgot about me." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Pain flashed in his eyes. "I didn't forget." "Then why didn't you defend me in that room?" He didn't answer. That silence said enough. "I understand," I whispered. "No, you don't." "I do. Power protects itself." "That's not fair." "Neither is this." I stepped back. "I'll do my new job." "This isn't over." "It feels over." I walked out before my tears betrayed me. By noon everyone knew. "She's back where she belongs." "Told you it wouldn't last." "Temporary," someone mocked. I packed my few things quietly. The black folder from the dinner rested on my desk. I left it behind. At the hospital that evening, I sat beside my mother's bed. She looked pale but smiled when she saw me. "You look tired," she said softly. "Just work." "You're strong." I forced a smile. "I try." She touched my hand weakly. "Don't let anyone make you feel small." The words broke something inside me. I leaned my head beside her hand. Tears fell silently. "I thought I was growing," I whispered. "You are." "It doesn't feel like it." "Growth hurts." I closed my eyes. For the first time since I started that job, I felt powerless again. Not because of rumors. Not because of her. But because he stayed silent when it mattered most. I wiped my tears before the nurse entered. I straightened up. I would not cry in front of strangers. But inside, something fragile had cracked. And I didn't know if it could be repaired. 3 days later, I stopped crying. The reflection in the bathroom mirror looked back at me with red-rimmed eyes, but no tears. "I can't survive like this," I whispered to myself. "Tears won't protect me." I took a deep breath. That night, I signed up for night business classes. Corporate strategy, finance, leadership, everything I had avoided before. My first lecture felt intimidating. Professors spoke in jargon, numbers danced across the screen, charts filled the board. I took notes obsessively, trying to swallow the panic in my throat. A classmate leaned over. "You're quiet. New here?" "I prefer to listen," I said calmly. He nodded. "Smart choice." Every evening I returned home exhausted. My mother smiled tiredly. "You're working too hard." "I have to," I said, sitting beside her hospital bed. "I can't let anyone decide my future for me again." At work I stopped seeking his attention. He approached me once, coffee in hand. "Thought I'd see if you survived the night class," he said softly. "I did," I replied without looking up. He paused, confusion flickering in his eyes. "You used to talk to me more." "I know," I said. "I need to focus elsewhere." He frowned but said nothing. I spent lunch hours in the library, poring over financial reports and company filings. I watched the boardroom from the hallway, memorizing who spoke when, who avoided which topics, who laughed at what jokes. Knowledge became my armor. Observation became my shield. One afternoon he approached again. "Your proposal for the supplier contracts, it's improving," he said. "Thank you," I answered politely, keeping my distance. His brows knitted. "You seem different." "Distant." "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm focused." He didn't respond. I could see the moment his curiosity shifted to caution. Evening after evening, I studied in silence. Financial models, organizational charts, risk assessments, I devoured them all. At home, I spread reports across the floor, highlighting numbers and strategies. "I will understand this company inside out," I whispered. "No one can take it from me." Strength grew quietly. I avoided gossip, stayed out of petty office politics, and learned every process, every loophole, every decision-maker's preference. Once she, the senior assistant, passed by my desk. "You're silent," she said. "I have work to do," I replied evenly. She raised an eyebrow, clearly unsettled. "Don't disappear from notice entirely." "I haven't," I said simply. She walked away muttering. I smiled faintly. A small victory. Weeks passed. My notebooks grew heavier. My mind sharper. The CEO observed me from afar. He tried to speak occasionally. I answered politely, but the wall was in place. "Why are you avoiding me?" he finally asked one afternoon, his voice low. "I'm not avoiding you," I said carefully. "I'm building myself." His eyes searched mine. "Building yourself, how?" "Knowledge. Confidence. Control," I said, my voice firm. "I want to stand on my own. I don't need your approval anymore." A flicker of something passed across his face, surprise, maybe admiration. "I see," he said quietly. "I didn't realize." "You didn't need to," I replied. Days turned into weeks. My work improved, unnoticed except by him and a few board members. I didn't ask for recognition. I didn't seek revenge. Every step I took was silent, deliberate, unshakable. One evening after class, I sat on the balcony overlooking the city. Papers spread around me. My phone buzzed. A message from him. "Lunch tomorrow?" I stared at it. I typed a reply carefully. "I'll be in the boardroom tomorrow. I have updates." No casual coffee invites. No personal chatter. I pressed send. This was no longer about emotion. This was about building something permanent, strength that couldn't be shaken by rumors, gossip, or temporary favors. I closed my notebook and looked at the skyline. "You can't take this from me," I whispered. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the quiet surge of control inside me. Something unshakable had begun. I was no longer just surviving. I was preparing to rise. Months passed like a silent storm. I arrived earlier, left later, and left nothing unfinished. Every report, every spreadsheet, every minor task became an opportunity to learn, anticipate, and excel. The office noticed. Not the whispers, they still lingered, but the results. That morning, a crisis erupted. A major client called unexpectedly. Their contract teetered on collapse over miscommunication and missed deadlines. The senior assistant froze. The board murmured. He looked at me, expecting hesitation. I stood. "Here's the solution," I said, voice calm but firm. I outlined every step, projected numbers, risk mitigations, and contingency plans. "Check the clauses here," I pointed. "Then propose an immediate amendment to secure the renewal." The client listened. Silent at first. Then nods. Then relief. "I didn't expect such a quick resolution," the board member said. "You handled it well," the CEO murmured, leaning toward me. I smiled faintly. Not for him but for myself. The board applauded, publicly. "Excellent work," one executive said. "Who prepared this?" I raised my hand slightly. "I did, with my team." Gasp. Whispers. Some admiration, some envy. The senior assistant's eyes widened. Bewilderment. For the first time, I no longer felt small next to her. Later, the CEO approached. "You were remarkable today," he said softly, voice carrying a trace of something between pride and regret. "Thank you," I replied politely. "I should have protected you before," he said, almost a whisper. I shook my head. "I understand leadership pressure. Decisions aren't simple." His gaze lingered. "You were alone in all of it." I admitted, "but I survived. That's what matters." Silence fell between us. He studied me as if seeing me anew. Not the nervous girl spilling coffee. Not the timid assistant who avoided attention. "Different," he said finally. "Yes," I said. "I had to be." He nodded slowly. Something unspoken passed between us. Regret, acknowledgement, maybe respect. I walked back to my desk. Papers in order, emails handled, strategy memorized. The office felt smaller now. No one intimidated me, not whispers, not eyes, not the shadows of doubt. I glanced at the senior assistant. She avoided my gaze. I smiled faintly. Power was quiet but unmistakable. I returned to my seat and opened the next proposal. He stopped at my desk. "You're untouchable now," he said softly. I looked up. Not untouchable. Prepared. Observant. Steady. He raised an eyebrow. Subtle difference. "It matters," I said. He studied me a moment longer, then turned away. I watched him walk across the office. respect in his stride, tempered with hesitation. For the first time I realized the truth. My transformation didn't need approval. It didn't need protection. I was no longer defined by coffee stains, whispered rumors, or temporary roles. I was becoming someone even I admired. The board meeting reconvened. Eyes followed me, not with doubt but expectation. I leaned forward. Prepared. Focused. Come. This is how we'll move forward, I said. Every word deliberate, every recommendation precise. The room absorbed it, acknowledging it, and I felt the power settle quietly inside me. The CEO returned later. You've changed, he said, voice low. I had to, I replied simply. Did it hurt? He asked. Every day, I admitted. But I refused to break. He nodded, as if understanding the depth behind that simple statement. No one clapped. No one celebrated beyond the board's acknowledgement. But inside, something had shifted irreversibly. I was untouchable, not because of my position, not because of titles, not because of his attention, but because I had claimed myself. The office buzzed around me, whispers quieted, eyes sharper but cautious. I smiled faintly at my reflection in the polished glass of the conference room. I had survived. I had grown. And I was ready for everything that came next. The journey was far from over, but now I was the storm, not the frightened girl in its path. The board called a surprise audit. I arrived early, notebooks in hand, calm and prepared. She, the senior assistant, was already there, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. She smiled at me, sharp and controlled. Morning, she said, voice honeyed. Morning, I replied evenly, no emotion. She glanced at my files. Working late again? Always, I said. Minutes later, the auditors began. Papers shuffled. Computers whirred. Reports were cross-checked. Numbers scrutinized. I stayed quiet, observing. Her confidence faltered first. Line 47, the auditor said, looking at her spreadsheet. Can you explain this transaction? She blinked. Yes. It's a reallocation of funds. The auditor frowned. It doesn't match previous approvals. Any documentation? She hesitated, fumbling through files. Sweat formed at her hairline. I leaned slightly forward. I have the approvals here, I said calmly, handing over neatly organized documents. Her lips pressed thin. The auditor compared my files to hers. Numbers matched mine perfectly. Everything here checks out, the auditor said. Then he looked at her. And this discrepancy? Her face turned pale. I don't know how that happened. I can show the original transaction log, I said softly. All steps documented. The auditor nodded. Good. That clarifies it. She looked at me with a mixture of shock and fury. I felt nothing. No joy. No triumph. Only clarity. The audit continued. Each question asked, each anomaly checked, pointed to the same truth. Honesty had been my shield all along. Later the board convened. She sat stiffly, attempting composure. Your records don't align with the actual transactions, the chairman said sternly. You'll be suspended for 2 weeks pending further review. Her hand trembled slightly. No one spoke. I lowered my gaze to my notebook. I didn't need applause. I didn't need whispers to die down. The facts spoke for themselves. Walking back to my desk, I noticed the subtle shift in the office. Eyes followed me, not with gossip but respect. A junior assistant smiled. Morning. Great job today. I nodded politely. Even she, the senior assistant, avoided my gaze. Later he found me alone in the boardroom. You stayed professional, he said quietly. I did what was right, I replied evenly. He hesitated. I should have intervened before. I never wanted revenge, I said. I wanted fairness. He studied me. You handled it with grace. Come. I underestimated you. I learned early that chaos doesn't reward emotion, I said softly. He nodded slowly. Something unspoken passed between us. I'm proud of how you handled yourself, he said, voice low. I allowed myself the smallest smile. Not for him, not for anyone. For me. The day ended with sunlight spilling across the office windows. I walked past her empty desk. The files left behind were evidence of her mistake, silent and powerful. I stopped at the window, watching the city stretch below. Karma doesn't shout. It waits. It moves quietly, with precision, rewarding those who endure, those who remain steady. I turned back to my desk, feeling the office shift around me. Whispers had vanished. Respect had replaced them. And in that silence, I understood the truth. Strength wasn't loud, and victory didn't need celebration. Only patience, integrity, and quiet resolve. That evening, I closed my notebook and glanced at the city lights. I had survived. I had endured. And the world had finally noticed. For the first time, I felt untouchable, but not because of fear. Because of truth. The morning news hit like a punch. Stock prices plummeted. Emails flooded the board. Calls rang nonstop. The risky expansion plan, the one everyone had praised, had failed. The office felt like a storm had landed inside. I sat at my desk, heart steady. I had spent months studying scenarios, modeling risks, preparing for this exact moment. The board called an emergency meeting. He entered, calm as ever, but I could see the tension in his eyes. "This is worse than expected," one executive said, voice sharp. "We need immediate action." I raised my hand slowly. "I have a proposal." Heads turned. Whispers ran along the room. "Go ahead," he said quietly, not smiling, just attentive. I stood. Papers, charts, and projections in hand. "We need to stabilize investor trust immediately. We can propose a phased restructure of the expansion, prioritize high-return segments, and issue a transparent update to stakeholders." He watched silently, hands folded, expression unreadable. "Explain the financial safeguards," the chairman said. I spoke clearly, pointing to spreadsheets and models I had prepared over late nights. "By adjusting capital allocation and renegotiating supplier contracts, we limit exposure to the failed segments. Cash flow remains positive, and risk is minimized." The board murmured. Some skeptical, some intrigued. "I recommend initiating talks with key investors today," I continued. "I can lead negotiations with their teams directly." All eyes turned to me. "You?" One senior board member scoffed. "You're an assistant." I smiled faintly. "I am currently. But I have been studying these plans for months. I understand the details. I am prepared to lead." Silence. He leaned back in his chair, watching quietly. No words. Only observation. The board debated, voices rising. "She's ambitious," another said, tone laced with disbelief. "She's prepared," I replied calmly. "And the numbers support this strategy." Minutes stretched. Tension tightened around me like a wire. Finally, the chairman spoke. "All in favor of appointing her to lead the investor negotiations?" Hands went up hesitantly. I nodded, steady, voice calm. "I will begin immediately." Later, I sat at the negotiation table, laptop open, documents precise. Investors called in one by one. "Your plan is thorough," one said. "We're willing to cooperate." Another added, "You seem confident." Clear. I held the line firmly. Every question answered. Every concern addressed. Hours passed. By the end of the day, investor trust stabilized. Stocks began to recover. We returned to the boardroom. He watched quietly, hands folded, as I presented a final summary. "Board vote," the chairman said. I held my breath. "Effective immediately," he continued, "we appoint your name as Director of Strategy." I froze for a fraction of a second. Then disbelief flickered across the room. Faces turned pale. Whispers trailed behind them. I rose slowly. The weight of authority in my hands was intoxicating. Not power over others, but control over decisions I had earned. He approached me after the meeting. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "Thank you," I replied. "I've watched you grow," he continued. "I underestimated how capable you had become." "You didn't need to protect me for me to become capable," I said evenly. He paused. His eyes studied mine. No curiosity, no condescension, only acknowledgement. "I see you differently now," he said finally. "Not as someone below me." "Good," I said, matching his tone. "Because I'm not." He smiled faintly. Small. Genuine. The office had shifted. Not subtly this time. Respect replaced whispers. I walked past the senior assistant. She stared, silent, unprepared for the change. My team, small but competent, followed me into the newly established office. I glanced back at him. He nodded. No words needed. For the first time we spoke as equals. "I trust your judgment," he said quietly, almost a whisper. "And I will not fail it," I replied. He studied me a moment longer, then turned away. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the day settle into me. The city lights outside gleamed like silent applause. Power had shifted, not through gossip, fear, or whispers, but through preparation, patience, and steady resolve. I touched the contract on my desk, Director of Strategy. It was more than a title. It was proof. Proof that I no longer stood below anyone. The room hummed quietly with energy. The storm had passed, and I had risen. For the first time I felt truly untouchable. The invitation came unexpectedly. "Dinner tonight," he said, voice quiet. "Just us. No work." I hesitated. "Just us." "Yes," he said. "No titles. No hierarchy." The restaurant was dim. Soft music, muted lighting. I arrived first, nervously straightening my dress. He entered moments later. No suit. No air of command. Just him, ordinary human, vulnerable. We sat. Silence stretched for a heartbeat too long. "I wanted to apologize," he said finally. "For?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. "For not speaking up. When you were humiliated, when you were reassigned." I stayed silent. I felt the weight of those months resurface. "Your silence cost me trust," I said softly, looking at him evenly. "I know," he admitted, eyes dark with something heavy. "I feared losing control of the board. I thought any interference would backfire. And so you let me face them alone," I said. "No accusation. Just honesty. I see that now. I was wrong. I should have trusted you, and myself, to handle it." The words hung in the air. "I'm not angry anymore," I said quietly. "I needed clarity, not excuses." He swallowed. "I admired you from the start. Because you treated me like a normal man. Not a title. Not untouchable. Just human." I blinked. That admission cut through the tension. I hesitated. "I once cared deeply. When I thought you were just ordinary. And I trusted you more than anyone." He looked down at his hands. "I had no idea. I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," I said. "But trust isn't given freely. It's earned. And sometimes, it takes silence to understand that." His eyes met mine, searching, filled with something unspoken. Guilt. Real guilt. Not arrogance. Not pride. "I kept my distance," he admitted. "Even when I wanted to intervene. I let fear dictate my actions." I nodded slowly. "And yet here we are. Still, talking." He leaned back. "I wish I could undo it. The humiliation, the doubts, the whispers. I see now how isolated you felt." "I survived," I said. "And I grew. That's the only thing that mattered." "I never stopped thinking about you," he whispered. "Even when I had to act as if nothing mattered." I studied his face. Vulnerable. Honest. Human. And still I kept my emotions in check. "You wanted control," I said softly. "And you were afraid I might take it in ways you couldn't manage." He nodded. "Yes. And that fear, it blinded me." "You admire me now?" I asked, a faint smile touching my lips. "I always did," he said quietly. "Even when I was afraid to show it." The air between us was heavy. Full of things unsaid, moments lost, and trust slowly rebuilt. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "I just needed to understand." "I understand," he said. "And I will do better. Always." The waiter brought our food, but we barely noticed. I traced the rim of my glass with a finger, letting the quiet fill the space. "I wonder," I said softly, "if things could have been different. If I had known sooner what you truly felt." He met my gaze, eyes glimmering. "Maybe. But we can't change the past. We can only move forward." "Forward," I echoed. Pause. "I'm proud of who you've become," he said, voice low. "And I'm proud of myself," I whispered, more to me than to him. He nodded, respect and something deeper reflected in his eyes. The conversation moved slowly. Careful. Honest. I realized something then. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about seeing someone for who they truly were, and acknowledging your own strength. I looked at him. A man who had made mistakes. Who had feared losing control. Who now showed remorse. "I hope," I said softly, "that silence won't be our shield again." "I won't let it be," he replied firmly. We sat in quiet after that, words no longer needed. The city lights outside mirrored the fragile peace between us. For the first time I felt the air shift, not tension, not expectation, but understanding. And in that space I knew our story was changing. But whether it would heal, or break, remained unspoken, waiting between the spaces of what we said and what we didn't. The morning of the shareholder meeting, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Notifications. Mentions. Rumors resurfacing online. Whispers from months ago, distorted, exaggerated, ready to strike. I felt a familiar pit of fear. "You'll handle it," he said quietly as we entered the boardroom. I nodded, trying to steady my racing heart. The meeting began. Reports, projections, routine discussions. Everything seemed normal, until the online chatter hit the floor. "I've seen these posts," one board member muttered. "They're damaging." Whispers spread. Eyes flicked toward me. I kept my hands folded, sitting still, listening, breathing. Then he stood. The room froze. "Let me make this clear," he said, voice calm but commanding. "Every promotion, every decision she has made, was earned. Her work speaks for itself. Not rumors, not gossip." I felt the weight of months of humiliation lift slightly. He didn't stop there. "And I take responsibility for not protecting her when I should have," he continued. I allowed whispers to shape decisions. "That ends now." A heavy silence followed. Eyes widened. Board members exchanged looks. I felt a strange mix of pain and peace. Pain for the past months, the whispers, the silent nights of doubt. Peace because someone finally said what I had needed to hear. Publicly. Honestly. I exhaled slowly, trying to let the moment sink in. After the meeting, the reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions hurled. "Your relationship with the CEO?" one shouted. I paused, weighing my words. "This," I said, gesturing to the room, "is my success. Every step, every decision, every achievement, my own. Rumors don't define me. Effort does." The flashbulbs popped, but I didn't flinch. I spoke calmly, strongly. Another reporter pressed. "Did he influence your promotions?" I shook my head. "No. He's been a colleague, an observer, not a crutch. My work stands on its own." For the first time I felt fully seen. Not as gossip. Not as a rumor. Not as a mistake. As the crowd dispersed, he approached. "You handled that perfectly," he said quietly, admiration in his eyes. "I had to," I replied. "It's not just about me. It's about fairness. Truth." He nodded, his expression soft. "I should have done this sooner. You deserved it." "I understand why you didn't," I said softly. "But I needed to know it eventually. Publicly or privately." "Noted," he said, a faint smile forming. "Lesson learned." I glanced around the emptying boardroom. The air felt different. Charged. Respectful. The senior assistant avoided my eyes entirely. Others nodded politely, no whispers, no laughter. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. Ownership. Recognition. I took a deep breath, letting the tension leave my shoulders. My phone buzzed again. Another online post. This time, acknowledgement rather than rumor. I smiled faintly. For the first time, my presence wasn't defined by whispers. It was defined by strength. And I finally felt untouchable, not because of him, not because of titles, but because I had earned it. I glanced at him one last time before leaving the room. We walked out side by side. Equal. Professional. Respected. And in that moment, I understood the truth. Power isn't about dominance. It's about recognition, fairness, and standing firm no matter the whispers. The world had seen me, and I had finally seen myself. The morning of the shareholder meeting, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Notifications, mentions, rumors resurfacing online, whispers from months ago, distorted, exaggerated, ready to strike. I felt a familiar pit of fear. "You'll handle it," he said quietly as we entered the boardroom. I nodded, trying to steady my racing heart. The meeting began. Reports, projections, routine discussions. Everything seemed normal, until the online chatter hit the floor. "I've seen these posts," one board member muttered. "They're damaging." Whispers spread. Eyes flicked toward me. I kept my hands folded, sitting still, listening, breathing. Then he stood. The room froze. "Let me make this clear," he said, voice calm but commanding. "Every promotion, every decision she has made, was earned. Her work speaks for itself. Not rumors, not gossip." I felt the weight of months of humiliation lift slightly. He didn't stop there. "And I take responsibility for not protecting her when I should have," he continued. I allowed whispers to shape decisions. "That ends now." A heavy silence followed. Eyes widened. Board members exchanged looks. I felt a strange mix of pain and peace. Pain for the past months, the whispers, the silent nights of doubt. Peace because someone finally said what I had needed to hear. Publicly. Honestly. I exhaled slowly, trying to let the moment sink in. After the meeting, the reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions hurled. "Your relationship with the CEO?" one shouted. I paused, weighing my words. "This," I said, gesturing to the room, "is my success. Every step, every decision, every achievement, my own. Rumors don't define me. Effort does." The flashbulbs popped, but I didn't flinch. I spoke calmly, strongly. Another reporter pressed. Did he influence your promotions? I shook my head. No. He's been a colleague and observer, not a crutch. My work stands on its own. For the first time I felt fully seen. Not as gossip. Not as a rumor. Not as a mistake. As the crowd dispersed, he approached. You handled that perfectly, he said quietly, admiration in his eyes. I had to, I replied. It's not just about me. It's about fairness. Truth. He nodded, his expression soft. I should have done this sooner. You deserved it. I understand why you didn't, I said softly. But I needed to know it eventually. Publicly or privately. Noted, he said, a faint smile forming. Lesson learned. I glanced around the emptying boardroom. The air felt different. Charged. Respectful. The senior assistant avoided my eyes entirely. Others nodded politely, no whispers, no laughter. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. Ownership. Recognition. I took a deep breath, letting the tension leave my shoulders. My phone buzzed again. Another online post. This time, acknowledgement rather than rumor. I smiled faintly. For the first time, my presence wasn't defined by whispers. It was defined by strength. And I finally felt untouchable, not because of him, not because of titles, but because I had earned it. I glanced at him one last time before leaving the room. We walked out side by side. Equal. Professional. Respected. And in that moment I understood the truth. Power isn't about dominance. It's about recognition, fairness, and standing firm no matter the whispers. The world had seen me, and I had finally seen myself. He asked me to meet him in the quiet lounge after the boardroom chaos had settled. No titles. No presentations. Just him and me. I need to tell you something, he said, voice low, hesitant. I looked at him carefully. Go ahead. He swallowed. I love you. My chest tightened. The words were simple but weighty. Not because of his position. Not because of my power. What? I asked softly, steadying my voice. I love you, he repeated. Not because you changed. Not because you climbed, fought, or became untouchable. Because you were brave from the first day. Because you treated me like a man, not a CEO. I stared at him, absorbing each word. Bravery. Honesty. Recognition. He had seen me. Not the office rumors, not the gossip, not even the mistakes. Just me. I felt my heart beat slow. I thought of every late night studying, every silent victory, every tear I hid, every step I took to build myself. I need to ask something first, I said carefully. Why now? Why tell me this? Because I can't unsee you, he said. I tried to distance myself to respect your growth, but I was wrong. I needed to say it. I nodded slowly. Silence stretched between us, heavy but not tense. I asked myself what I truly wanted. I realized I no longer feared losing him, or the company. I had my own worth, my own voice, my own strength. I need honesty, I said softly. If this is to mean anything, love cannot grow where power once silenced truth, where fear dictated every move. He met my gaze squarely. I understand. Then if we try again, I continued, it must be equal. No secrets. No protection games. No hierarchy between us. His eyes softened, unwavering. Agreed. No hesitation. No games. A strange warmth filled the room. Not lust, not control, not fear. Respect. Trust. Equal footing. I need to see you as a man, I whispered, not just to see. Will you allow me that? He nodded, a small smile forming. Yes. That's all I want too. We stayed quiet for a moment. Watching, measuring, understanding. The air was charged but calm. For the first time I didn't feel small. I didn't feel cautious. I felt prepared. I can't promise it'll be easy, I said finally. But I can promise honesty. Always. I'll match that, he said firmly. And for the first time I saw him as a man willing to grow. Not a boss. Not an observer. Not a distant figure of authority. A man who could walk beside me. I breathed in slowly. The choice was mine and I embraced it fully. I'm ready, I said quietly. He reached for my hand. Not commanding. Not claiming. Just reaching. Then we move forward, he whispered. Forward, I echoed. The tension lifted. The past remained, but it no longer controlled us. We had survived pride, misunderstanding, and silence. Now we chose trust, respect, and equality. And in that quiet lounge I realized, finally, what it meant to stand as myself fully, to love without compromise, to lead without fear, and to walk beside someone who saw me clearly and accepted the woman I had become. 1 year later, I stand in the same office where I once spilled coffee. The memory flashes vividly. Panic, embarrassment, the flush of shame. That girl felt small, powerless, invisible. Now I'm different. I'm co-leading a new expansion project overseas. Charts, proposals, investor calls, it all feels natural, confident, controlled. Are the projections ready? He asks, standing beside me. Not above me. Beside me. Yes, I reply, sliding the reports across the table. I've included risk analysis for every possible scenario. We're prepared. He nods, silently impressed. I don't need him to say it. My mother is healthy. I visit her hospital only for checkups and smiles. No fear. No anxiety. Only peace. I pause for a moment, looking out the office window. The city stretches below, lights twinkling like silent applause. I think about the girl I was, ashamed, small, constantly apologizing for existing. I thank her quietly for surviving. For enduring humiliation, whispers, betrayal. For not breaking even when it would have been easier. She would be proud, he says softly, reading my expression. I am proud, I reply, smiling. Not for him. Not for the office. For myself. We built something honest after breaking something fragile. Our partnership, our respect, our trust. It grew from the rubble of mistakes, silence, and fear. I remember when you first walked in, he murmurs. Coffee everywhere, nerves on display. I never expected this. I chuckle softly. Neither did I. I thought I'd fail on the first day. I didn't know how to survive. You survived, he says. And more than that, you thrived. I look at him. Not as a CEO. Not as the man I once feared to impress or disappoint. I see a man willing to walk beside me, equal, honest, human. No one was destroyed in this, I say, voice steady. No one except my own doubts. I didn't win by breaking others. I won by rebuilding myself. He smiles, warm, proud, but not condescending. I was mistaken for something small in the beginning, I continue. But I learned something powerful. I was never small. I was simply becoming. He reaches for my hand. Not a gesture of possession. Not of hierarchy. Just connection. Partnership. We stand together in silence, letting the memory of the past and the reality of the present merge. You've grown, he says. Not just in power but in wisdom. And courage, I add. He nods and the city outside glows in approval. I glance at the office around me, the same place where whispers once followed me, where envy lingered in every corner. The air is different now. Warm. Respectful. Energized. A team member enters. We're ready for the overseas briefing, they say. I nod. Let's go. Prepared and steady. The room hums with anticipation, but I feel no fear. Only focus. Only strength. Walking toward the elevator, I look back at the desk where I first learned what it meant to be underestimated. I smile faintly. That girl, the trembling, apologetic girl, would not recognize me now. She wouldn't believe she could endure so much, grow so much, and still stand with her head held high. But I know. And I honor her. He walks beside me, side by side, not ahead, not behind. We exit the office together, leaving behind whispers, doubts, and the weight of expectations. The city lights welcome us. Silent, vast, infinite. We're ready. Ready to lead. Ready to grow. Ready to become more than the mistakes of the past. And I realize finally that the world sees me for what I am. Not a secretary, not a mistake, not a rumor. Strength. Resilience. Wisdom. I take a deep breath, feeling the air fill me completely. I was never small. I was simply becoming. And now fully I am.